Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we continue our preparations for the State of the World Forum 2025, which will be happening between December 14th and 17th as a live interactive global broadcast. There's so many issues that are coming together for the forum around our destruction of planet, around the instability in human affairs, around exponential release of artificial intelligence, and about the growing reality in the government and public mind about the presence of technologically advanced non-human intelligences on Earth. That it's a true statement, I think, for almost everyone in the world that people have lost the capacity to connect the dots. And therein lies both our predicament and our opportunity. Because in a time of great confusion, in a time of chaos, what Ilya Prigogine, the Nobel laureate back in 1996, with his work in chaos theory, taught us is that the greater the chaos, the deeper the underlying coherence. And this is very important for the State of the World Forum because our focus is not on the crises. It's not on the confusions. It's not on the turbulence, even the dangers. It's on the extraordinary opportunities and potential that are embedded in the very challenges we seek to overcome. And as you all know from previous sessions, the opportunity emerging before the world at this time is that we have four intelligences on our hands. We have human intelligence, and up to this point, we basically assumed, at least in the Western world, that we were the only intelligence there is. All of a sudden, we're discovering nature intelligence, that nature is alive, intentional, intelligent at levels that we are not intelligent, particularly in the areas of clairvoyance. We've unleashed artificial intelligence, and we've got cosmic intelligences. So this generation has maybe the greatest opportunity in the history of the human species to elevate our understanding of who we are and why we're here, to work co-creatively with these other intelligences to create a future that we can all fall in love with. Just imagine a future where young people all over the world are engaging in an intelligible communication with the trees, with the flowers, with the animals, with the birds, with the fish, consulting with them, gleaning their wisdom, talking to ETs from other star systems and other dimensions, integrating AI into this larger ecology of relating with one another. And because AI is being integrated with nature intelligence and cosmic intelligence, all the dangers that currently we imagine dissipate away because there's an overarching harmony of being, harmony of heart that is gathering these intelligences together to fashion a flourishing future that all of us want to have. So what that means, in order to get there, knowing that nature intelligence and cosmic intelligence doesn't communicate through words. It communicates through consciousness. It communicates through mental telepathy, remote viewing, all manner of clairvoyance. The bottom line for the human future is that we've got to learn the language of consciousness in a serious, collective way for the first time. Up to this point in history, the people who were clairvoyant were largely the shamans, the elders, the sorcerers, the witches, the priests. And on behalf of the community, they mediated our relationship with the unseen world. But for the first time, given the gravity of the crisis that we face, all of us need to learn the language of consciousness. So at the State of the World Forum, we're going to have a number of people who are going to introduce the language of consciousness to our global community. And one of the people who will be there, of course, is Diane Hennessy Powell, who is the scientist for the research into the autis that gave rise to the telepathy tapes. Through Diane and others, we were introduced to Dalia and Burgoin, a mother-daughter combination that are remarkably clairvoyant, and in fact won first place at the Psy Games this past August. There will be people like Bertie Jaworski, probably the world's greatest remote viewer, Chris Bledsoe, who communicates on a regular basis with the orbs, with Our Lady, as a demonstration of what's possible for us humans in this moment, as a pathway to the future that we imagine. So today we want to deepen that conversation, and I'd like to introduce Alex Stefan, who is a hypnotist. He's also a clairvoyant. He has a facility in psychokinetics, and he works with Dalia, has been teaching with Dalia. And as I've mentioned before on Humanity Rising, we are establishing, in fact, launching a global educational initiative to bring what Alex and Dalia and various others, Bertie, Chris, are pioneering into the larger global public domain to provide support for our $100,000 award in how we bring the four intelligences together in a synergistic way. So Alex, I want to welcome you to Humanity Rising. And why don't we start by you just sharing with us a little bit about your background and how you went down the rabbit hole of consciousness and what faculties in that domain did you find yourself attracted to?
Thanks, Jim. It was a fairly long journey with the first exposure being when I was very young. So I was very lucky that my parents decided to enroll me in a Silva Ultramind training, if anybody remembers that
I
from
do. I took the course when
yeah,
I think it was 16.
great. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a great introduction. I think I was about 12
beat me to
when yeah.
it.
Um, and off the back of that, I was lucky that my parents introduced me to a bunch of um, occult type books or psychic books, things with telepathy, things with remote viewing and that sort of stuff. And around 15 or so, I saw a telekinesis video online on what was then YouTube, I think it was, and I decided to try it. I spent a bit of time, but after about half an hour or so, I finally had it moving, the psi wheel, because that's what was being demonstrated.
A side wheel meaning just a like a Ferris wheel where you just kind of mentally try to get it to move.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's generally it's done with a tin foil, and it's kind of like an umbrella, which sits on a needle so that the point of friction is minimal, and it allows for the slightest of things to move it. So it's a very good beginner exercise, beginner tool to get started with telekinesis. And that was my first kind of introduction to it. Unfortunately, what happened was I ended up getting into business school and majored into fi with finance. And I became very materialist, even though I had these experiences when I was young. Um, my background is in finance, consulting. I did an MBA. I did an MSc in econometrics, so very quantitative. So
Mm.
I ended up completely pushing away and not even believing in this stuff until years
Even though
later.
you had the experience. Isn't that interesting?
It's it's
Share the pathway for just for a moment between doing it and then not believing it.
so at first I wasn't sure if I was in fact when I was young I believed I was doing it, but I there was a lot of stuff online that was saying, it's the heat from the hands, or it's your magnetic
Yeah.
electromagnetism from your body. So I spent a lot of time. I spent weeks being able to do multiple side wheels at once. So I would have like my workstation, which was like, in an L in a corner. I'd have like one over there, one over there, one over there, one over there. And each one I'd be moving in opposite in different directions, and I'd be able to turn different
No
ones on and
kidding.
turn different ones off. Um, what happened though was I made the mistake of telling my best friend at the time about this, and I was in school, and I remember it perfectly because it was so traumatizing. It was fall, and we were walking towards school, and I mentioned it, and I remember him laughing so hard. I got so embarrassed, and when I went back that evening to do it again, my skill significantly regressed.
Whoa.
Um, but I ended up getting back into it and spent more time, and it took me longer the second time around, but I got further. And that other time I said, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna tell my friends because they're not gonna believe me, but I'll tell my mom. Because I would tell I had a very good relationship with my mom, so of course this would be good. So I remember calling her down after once again I had multiple side wheels, different directions. I was even using paper as well and cardboard because it was heavier. And I remember bringing her over, and she was standing on my left, and I was showing her, I'm like, watch this. And I was showing her, and I do this. I'm like, and I look at her, and she's like, oh, nice, great. And I'm like, that's not at all the reaction that you expect, because even at 16, you understand what should be normal, what isn't normal. And that's what ended up traumatizing me and not
Mm,
having me look at in that direction anymore for years,
mm,
for years.
mm.
Um, and yeah, fast forward 15 years, I decided to get out of the corporate world and the business stuff that I was doing, and I had this big kind of realization after speaking to an old friend of mine, who ended up being very successful but not happy in life. And I had this talk with him, and like just like something changed immediately, and I realized, what am I doing with my life? I need to be pursuing what I enjoy, what I like, and that's when I discovered hypnosis. This was about 5 years ago now. I ended up doing a mentorship with what I consider one of the UK's best hypnotists. He's a change worker, so a hypnotist, but also a hypnotherapist. Um, Following that, I got into shamanism. You mentioned shamanism in your introduction. Um, and then after that, my first mentor then introduced me to my current mentor, who is in Melbourne, Australia, and he's an NLP trainer. And once again, I got
Neuro-linguistic
very
program.
neurolinguistic programming, yes. Who works with belief systems and modeling, implicit modeling specifically. So being able uh, to model out a skill, an unconscious capability, an unconscious competence, um, turn it conscious, and then figure out the strategies to be able to then teach other people to do something, whatever the expertise is. So I got very lucky to meet him through my first mentor. Um, and that's when I got back into telekinesis. Um, I I wanted to run a training to be able to learn how to coach and develop people and transform people, and that's what my mentor does, and that's what he was apprentice. That's what I was apprenticing in, the development of human potential. But at the time, it was still about the mind. At least that's what I thought it was, and and I decided to put on a telekinesis training because I started to open up more to it. I looked into remote viewing. I looked into a few things. So my interest in psychic phenomena came back with shamanism and with hypnosis and with NLP. And I did my first telekinesis training um, over a year ago now, and I ran a number of them in Australia, in Melbourne, while I was doing my apprenticeship. And yeah, that kind of catches me up. I met Dalia Burgoin in January. I met her daughter. We became extremely good friends. We're very, very good friends. It's not just, although we're co-training together, we're on a it started off as a very close friendship. Um, and yeah, now we're putting on these trainings to uh because like you said, we believe that this stuff it's time for this stuff to get out to the world, and it's necessary now. And her daughter Lidu has mentioned multiple times that we need to be teaching telepathy, and this is what's necessary.
Cool. Well, let's unpack a few of those things. And thank you for sharing your journey. So many people have these gifts, but because of traumatic social interactions, they repress it. But in your case, it doesn't go away. And finally, it pops back out. And so well done for listening to that deepest of deep inner voices and coming out with exactly what the world needs as we move into this next phase. So, um, talk about how you got attracted to hypnosis, and then because that of all there's all kinds of clairvoyant capacities, and I'm very interested that it was hypnosis and psychokinetics that you found particularly interesting and with which you had real aptitude.
Yes. So at the time when I got into hypnosis, my mind wasn't yet opened up again to any psi abilities or anything beyond the material world. So I went into hypnosis with the frame that this is still a material world, but I want to explore the boundaries, the horizons of human potential and the potential of the mind and what we can do. And I've seen some incredible things that hypnotists can do, like positive hallucinations or negative hallucinations. A negative hallucination is where you wouldn't see what's in front of you. A positive one is like you create something. So I was fascinated with uh, what's possible to do with the mind and the healing that can also happen with that. And that was kind of my interest. I was interested in hypnosis when I was young as well, but um, it wouldn't have gone well with my parents or society to learn
Totally.
hypnosis.
What do you consider to be the essence of hypnosis? I mean, when you tell someone, gaze into my eyes or gaze into this pendulum, what's your understanding of what happens that they surrender into being able to do things that under any other circumstance they would either not be able to do or refuse to do? What's your understanding of what actually happens?
So it depends what sort of hypnotic experience you are referring to, because there can be different levels of what people would normally call hypnosis, and hypnosis has in my frame, it has to do with directing attention or leading cognition or focusing somebody's awareness on something. And sometimes that can be at a very, very deep level where you take somebody to a delta state, um, like a sleep-like state. Um, and this has been done many times in the past, in history as well. 50, 60 years ago, they would be amputating people in this state without any sort of medication, without any sort of analgesiacs. So there's that sort of hypnosis. There's a higher up hypnosis, which is probably what you're referring to, which you might see when people are on stage and they're, doing funny stuff, funny things.
Mhm.
Um, with that sort of stuff, you mentioned things that they wouldn't normally do or they wouldn't be okay to do. I don't think in that state people actually would do something that they wouldn't do. It's that they enter into a state and their conscious mind is accepting the frame that this is a hypnosis show or I'm being hypnotized and I'll go ahead and do that. There's some level of conscious control, but that depends on each person. Some people will have a lot less conscious control, but it's still their unconscious that's running the show and is choosing to do those things. But it's still within the frame of this is a hypnosis show. I'm being hypnotized and I'm choosing to do this. And then you have much higher levels of hypnosis, like a much more lucid state where you can, for example, you can have somebody have their hands stuck to the table, um, and without a trance, like eyes open, and that has a lot more to focus on. Not that the other ones don't, but in my experience, this has a lot more to do with narrowing their focus, narrowing their attention on that experience of the hand being stuck or being on the table and the sensations there. And that creates a reality that then they kind of fall into and accept, and they almost are convinced that that's happening. And
Mhm.
if you have enough authority as a hypnotist, if you have enough confidence with the way you present yourself, then you can do that very easily. And almost anybody here could do it if they just have the confidence and the authority behind it.
Yeah. Well, this is so interesting because in terms of the sort of cosmic intelligences, hypnosis is used in terms of regression, in terms of recovering memories, and would be interested in your comment on that because many people who've experienced extraterrestrial contact of one kind or another, abductions and so forth, can't remember anything. And then they go into some kind of hypnotic therapeutic process and they can recall the entire experience. Betty and Barney Hill, 1961, the classic abduction case. They couldn't remember anything. They had bad dreams, but it was all kind of fractalized. And then they went to a hypnotherapist, and it was through the hypnotherapeutic sessions that they remembered what happened and told the world their story. So hypnosis really accesses the psyche and the mind in a very powerful way simply by, follow the pendulum. I mean, it's a remarkably simple process, but it's absolutely profound in its capacities.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because what's happening is um, you're putting aside the conscious mind, which is often the one that might be the one that's shying away from a traumatizing experience or from a negative experience, and you're able to access the unconscious or the other than conscious mind directly. And that has access to all of your memories, all of your past experiences, everything, including, um, I believe, I can't be sure about this, but I believe the unconscious mind also has access to other than non-local information as well. So what I mean by that is bringing somebody into a theta state and speaking to their unconscious mind. Their unconscious can access like remote view things or get information that is they wouldn't normally have had.
Mhm.
And that seems to be a fairly consistent uh, consistent experience with hypnotists or hypnotherapists that have played around in that area.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a little device right here that was recommended by Bertie Jaworski, Neorhythms, where if you want to do remote viewing, you can kind of set the controls to theta, do a theta meditation for, 5 or 10 minutes, and it facilitates remote viewing. And remote viewing is you're given a couple numbers, 8-digit numbers, and no other information. And you can see past, future, you can see the other side of the world, it's like the whole universe opens up if you're at the right frequency of sort of brain waves. And hypnosis is just one of those gateway techniques.
Yeah, yeah, hypnosis is um allows easy access for that. And
Yeah.
that's there's the other thing that is incredible to do with hypnosis is that you can also utilize it to accelerate development and skill acquisition.
Oh, say more, say more.
So that is what I make use of a lot in my telekinesis trainings and in the trainings that I'm doing with Dalia. We do a lot of trance work, and I utilize a lot of hypnosis to facilitate faster skill development, because it's wonderful for that, especially for skills that require unconscious competence. So things that you're not too sure about how they're done or how you do them, uh, which are done unconsciously, especially when it requires
Mhm.
a level of knowing, but non-conscious knowing. Hypnosis works perfectly for that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, let's turn to this distinction in your mind and your experience, Alex, between hypnosis and psychokinetics. I mean, it's one thing to hypnotize someone and get them to do X, Y, or Z. It's another thing to move an object across the room just through, or bend a spoon, for example. Uri Geller was famous for being able to bend spoons. And uh, he was actually at the State of the World Forum in the early days and gave me the bent spoon. But talk about what do you have to access in your psyche as you transition from hypnotist to spoon bender, or when you're moved a penny across the room?
The Are you referring to the teleportation with the
Yeah,
penny?
yeah.
Um, yeah, so with psychokinesis, the manipulation of matter, um, prior to doing my first training in on telekinesis in Australia, I had spent quite a bit of time exploring other people's trainings and know what other people were teaching at the time, other trainers, other instructors, or other people that I could find online that provided information on this. And I spent a lot of time going through different materials, um, And what I found, and this was because I guess I was lucky because I was coming from an NLP neurolinguistics frame and a hypnosis frame. What I found were a lot of limiting beliefs.
Mm,
Um, there's a heck of a lot of constraints, unnecessary constraints that people decide to ascribe to this process, um, and not with any negative intentions. It's just what tends to happen is you have an experience, and with psychokinesis, you have that experience, and you kind of create a bit of a habit, and it's almost like there's you're digging a trench in a certain way of doing it, and then that's your reality and that's your truth. But your truth, your experience, not necessarily mine. And what ends up happening is a lot of them start stating those things as being facts, like you need to do this. I know some people say you need to connect with the object, you need to connect with it. Or a number of them talk about energy. You have energy and you're using energy to move it. Or you're sending something out of your eyes. That's another one I've heard. And I've experimented with all of these and have not been able to actually find something that is consistent. Now, I'm not saying those are wrong. They're definitely true in their reality, in their experience, and but I'm not sure any of them are actually true at for everyone. And one of the ways that it's so a big a big principle or big thing that I focus on, and I do this implicitly in my trainings, is I do my best for people attending to really get it in their bones that anything can work. And it's up to the
mm,
model that you choose to
mm,
create and whatever
mm.
you think is useful for you to have that effect. The idea is no model is true. Some are more useful than others. And that's what I try to get across with everyone on the trainings. Find what works for you and utilize that until it stops being useful.
Yeah, gotcha. Gotcha. One size doesn't fit all.
Exactly, yeah.
And I imagine over the years you've evolved your own technique for doing what you do. So let me ask you, when you move an object, what is your technique for moving the object?
I just look at it and have the intention to move it.
It's the old KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, silly.
Yeah, yeah. I tried I tried all sorts of stuff. I tried getting energy, I tried doing different things, I tried visualizing it, I tried all of these kinds of things, and in the end it just responds if you have the intention and you don't try too hard and you don't pay too much attention and you're a little bit you're just looking at it and kind of, you have the intention and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let's probe that a little bit because I think it's very simple, but it's also nuanced. And I want to go back to your original experience that when you started to have doubts about your capacity to move those little umbrellas, tinfoil umbrellas, you realized that you had inhibited your own capacity. And I know that's true from the point of view of the autist. And the telepathy tapes, Kai Dickens talks about a number of them. They couldn't do it, for example. There was one girl, I believe was in Mexico, who couldn't do it if her father walked in.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and also, if some of the people recording and so forth didn't believe it, the autist would kind of freeze up. So there's a relationship between one's own sense of capacity and and if there's other people in the room or whatever, their sense of whether you can do it or not. And do
Yeah,
you find that that's your experience?
yeah, absolutely. Performance anxiety is magnified when you're doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So any sort of that's why it becomes very difficult, and it's so commendable that Dalia is able to just do demonstrations one after the other on podcasts or live in front of a huge audience because the pressure to do that is huge, is immense, and the fact that she's able to pull it off anyway is just remarkable and is a testament to her own skill and her capability to remain calm under pressure. Um, so yes, that's a huge factor, and I think it was even, I believe, this is a phenomena that was observed for quite a while back, but I think Dean Radin has wrote a lot about it, the sheep and the goat effect of these kinds of experiments with random number generators with psychokinesis, where somebody coming in and the belief or the expectation that they have of whether or not this would work skews the results significantly.
Yeah, yeah. We've had a couple. Uh, uh, Joy is putting something in the chat right now about the effects of joy and different emotions. Guys, I imagine you have to frame of mind, and that's what makes it possible. If you can't do that, then nothing is possible. So one's
Yeah,
subjectivity, uh, not only in terms of possibility, but in terms of positive and negative emotions and so forth and so on, is really an important aspect of success or failure. Is that correct?
yeah, absolutely. Um, there's something to do with almost like being present or being not even being present actually, because I've had experiences where I'm not paying attention to what I'm moving, and sometimes that moves better, but I had the intention for it to move. And then I can remove my conscious mind from that. And I might be in a conversation with someone and it'll work better. So I've had that experience as well. But something to do with expectation, I believe, because I've also experimented a lot with negative states. I was curious if do you need to be in a state of joy and gratitude or happiness or calmness for this to work? No, it seems like even more negative states can work as well. I've experimented under all sorts of different kinds of conditions, and
Hmm.
um, there weren't many that didn't work. The main one was the one where you start being meta to yourself. When you start thinking about what you're doing and questioning if you're doing it right or if it's going to be working, that's when it, without fail, seems to hinder you.
Yeah. Well, let's transition. I want to hear the story. I've talked with Dalia a couple of times about this extraordinary course that you co-taught recently, which included some blind people. And she was astonished, as I'm sure you were, that I think there were 30 people in the class, and every single person was able to successfully engage in the various exercises and was moving the pennies around, putting the pennies on the wall, and all of that. Tell us more about the course, and particularly about, how she enabled blind people to actually see using mind sight. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the training was in Ogden, Utah, and it was a 6 day training. We divided it up so that in the morning we would do telekinesis, after lunch we would do blind sight, and then at the end of the day we would do some telepathy, and Lady would be there as well to do some demonstrations and to talk and answer some questions. We had hypnosis and trance spread throughout the day. Um, the blind folk, we had three of them. One of them was blind since birth. Another one was blind soon after, maybe from 2 or 3, and then had prosthetic eyes. And then the other one, the last one, the third one, he lost his sight maybe about 14 or 15 years ago, I think. All of them were able to see things, begin to see things. The one that had lost his eyesight 14 or 15 years ago, there was a very incredible moment, I think it was on the last day, when he actually ended up seeing his daughter for the first time. And he was able to make out her face and her smile, and her hair. Um, that was incredible to see. Um, that was Justin. Then John, who was blind from birth. he was able to see colors, numbers, letters. At one point, I remember he was walking to and from the toilet, and in between the training facility and the men's washroom, there's some of those um, Dia de los Muertos skulls, like
Mm.
very, very, very big skulls on the ground. And he's like, "Oh, is that a skull I see over there?" And and he's blind from birth, so you can imagine our surprise. Like, how, how could you make that up? Um,
Wow.
and Sean, who had the prosthetic eyes, and I believe John and maybe Justin as well, but Sean, we have him on video seeing through the table and seeing these Zener cards, almost like Zener cards, like shapes and symbols through the table and the following card after as well. So not just the one that's immediately under the table, but also the
Wow.
one that's below.
Wow.
So incredible, absolutely incredible things like that that you can't explain.
Yeah, but you know it's incontrovertibly true because you're seeing it.
Yes, yes,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm not in the business of trying to explain it. I leave that to the people. I don't claim to know how it works, but we can get the results.
And then you then what exercises in psychokinetics did you have the group do?
Yeah, so I have a usual kind of progression, which starts off with a psi wheel and starts off easy, and then I progress people to heavier objects. And then, so because the psi wheel is on one plane like that, there's an issue around if people spend too much time with that, they only learn the muscle to rotate objects. So very quickly, I try to get people to moving objects on back and forth.
Like
And
on the
then,
table.
for example, rolling, yeah, rolling cups, for example, or cans. And then also, as soon as that's done, get them to moving something in back, forth, left, right, so that we add another plane to the movement so that you're not constrained to how you're able to manipulate. Um, and then we ended up sticking some walls, some paper to walls, some pennies to walls, some potato chip bags to walls. Um,
What it just makes sure I understand. So there's a penny on the table, and you kind of intend or will or whatever is taking place, the penny to leave the table to go to the wall and then stick to the wall. Is that
oh
how?
no, 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 no. With your hand. So you'll take the penny and you'll stick it on the wall with your hand.
Oh, and then with intent, it doesn't fall down.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I see. I
Yeah.
was thinking
Yeah.
that you moved it from the table. I was thinking, Jesus, guy's good.
That'll be maybe after a few more trainings once I figure that out. Not yet.
Interesting, interesting.
We
And then Dalia said that all 30 of the students were successfully engaging in various forms of clairvoyance by the end of the 6 days.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely everybody. So Dahlia, it's not she doesn't just do seeing uh with blindside. We you also learn extrasensory perception, so being able to see or differentiate with by touch, by sound, so like hearing different colors as well on a piece of
Mm.
paper,
Oh.
smelling.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we it's a fairly holistic thing. Um, the the one thing that was kind of out of the blue and kind of went by more by inspiration was when we apported pennies. And I think that's what Dahlia mentioned about the penny thing to you. And maybe you were when you mentioned about the penny going onto the wall, what we were doing was we were apporting pennies.
This, describe in more detail. What does that mean?
So teleporting a penny, we had four people that teleported a penny from the cup. We had a cup in at the front of the room. I led people through a bit of a hypnosis, I facilitated them a little bit, and 30 people sitting down, and they all went to grab a penny with their mind or their spirit body or whatever it is from the cup in front of the room and put it in their pocket. We had four people that were successful in doing that.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
They teleported a penny out of a glass
Yes.
through the air into their pocket.
Yes, yes. I couldn't believe it. I've never done that. I've
Alex,
never
that is
facilitated that before.
astonishing.
I know, I know. Yes. I know. I couldn't believe it.
How
Yeah.
far did they transport the penny? Like 10 feet?
So we had one, no, more than 10 feet, because 10 feet was the beginning of the first table. Uh, one, the first gentleman that did it must have been about, I can tell you better in meters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
About 5 or 6 meters was one of them. Um,
30 feet, man. That's a long way to
Nikki
impinge
did
an
about
object through the air.
somebody Nikki did about a little almost twice that, and then we had another gentleman that did it in between that amount, and he was the last one to do it. And one of them did it twice on two different separate occasions. Yeah, it was. I've never had that as part of my trainings. I think it was the last day or the second last day. I was like,
Yeah,
let's do this. Let's try this.
that's remarkable. That's remarkable. And then what did Ledoux offer into this mix?
Oh boy, Lidu was absolutely incredible. You know, one of the biggest obstacles with this sort of stuff is to be able to break down people's limiting beliefs or barriers that this is even that this isn't possible. So Lidu came in on the first day and she started demonstrating telepathy to everyone. She started answering people's questions that weren't asked verbally. Um, she was providing people with insights. So she had messages for different people in the room, for all of us as a whole as well. Um, yeah, it was nonstop. Lidu was incredible because she's incredibly wise, and the
Mhm.
guidance that she provides people and when they need it as well. Um, yeah, it was just continuous, continuous blessings that she was giving us. Um, yeah.
Well, I wanted to go into some detail on this, everyone, because we're planning this course with Dalia and Alex and Ledoux for next spring as part of our global education program on the language of consciousness. We're in the process of developing a syllabus, and we'll be posting it as soon as we can as an in-person event in Ogden, Utah. For everyone's, I'm going to be there for sure. Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So let me just probe a couple of other areas, Alex. As a result of this course, for example, when you see people moving pennies, 5, 6 meters across the room, does that enhance your capacities now? I imagine you've gotten a lot better at what you do, having seen what's possible.
Yeah. So, Jim, unfortunately, I am not talented when it comes to psychic skills. I don't have any special talents. I'm probably on the lower end of talent. Every time I would practice, I would have to keep up the practice, otherwise I would lose it. What I found though is ever since I've been uh, doing these trainings, I haven't needed to practice to maintain my skill. And all of my trainings, there isn't a single training where at least half of the class is not doing better than what I can do. But what ends up happening is I end up through their progression, I end up picking up the stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
This is why these trainings work so well because being in the group environment, seeing people do this energy, it facilitates the skill development. And people rolling cans through psychokinesis, telekinesis, like back in the day, back in my day, like 10, 15 years ago when I was doing telekinesis, or even now, if you look at people doing solo practice, they'll spend a year on the side wheel to be able to move a heavier side wheel. The development is incredibly slow, but in 5, 6 days, you can move cans, which is people don't get after years worth of training. So,
So the collective experience, being in the class with like 30 people or 40 other people doing it, enhances everyone's individual capacity.
yes, absolutely. And there's something I mentioned this at the beginning of our chat. NLP is known for implicit modeling a skill, which is something we all naturally do. We grew up as kids. We have the ability to watch and pick up a skill just by watching. That's a specific state that you can go into, but that we kind of defamiliarize ourselves with as we grew up because everything became so conscious and rational. But you can go into that state and you can be led into that state so that you are have access and have more familiarity to that state. So that when you have, 20, 30 people, 40 people with you in the room that are doing this,
Mm,
you naturally just unconsciously turn on the state and you're picking up stuff.
exactly. 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 And I bet you the people that were sitting closest to Ledoux were seeing the most clearly. Well, listen, as we wrap this up, let me just ask you another question about miracles. The you think of in the Gospels that Jesus walked on water, or the famous story of the Buddha that his disciples would wake up early in the morning and he would be out in the middle of the pond meditating, elevated a few inches above a lotus blossom. You think of all these miracles, so-called, that have been done by avatars, and yet what you described in your course under normal circumstances would be considered a miracle. So what you're really doing, you and Dalia and Ledoux and others, you're you're making the miraculous mundane. You're making sort of the impossible something that virtually anybody can do if they get into the right frame of mind and attention. So just say more about that.
Yeah, Jim, this is exactly what we try to get across in our trainings, and this is exactly what has aligned us together, Dali and I. I'm trying to do my best to do away with this idea that you have to be meditating for 30 years, on a summit, and reaching these incredible states to be able to do these things, or that you need to be from the specific lineage of a special master to be able to
Yeah,
have
yeah,
these
yeah.
powers. These miracles, which is in itself a limiting belief to think it's miracles because it means that it separates you away from that. There's
Mm,
this idea that those things are over there and they can't be here. But this is what we try to get across. This is completely normal and completely ordinary. It's a little bit above ordinary, but it's only extraordinary, not a whole lot ordinary. This is inherent in us, and this is really our mission to bring this about because once this becomes normalized and we all have this, then things like telepathy and better connection and better
exactly.
empathy and better understanding, that becomes like everyone will have that then. It just becomes the way of doing the world and the way of being. But to do that, we need to move move away from these limiting beliefs. And I'm so thankful that I came across hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming to give me that frame of reference of what might be the mistake with what's happening here.
Yeah. Well, and you're on the cutting edge of the cutting edge, my friend, with Dalia and Ledoux and others, Bertie Jaworski, Chris Bledsoe, and because this is what's up for humanity. So what you're doing, we at State of the World Forum and Ubiquity University and Humanity Rising want to support. I'll be in touch with you separately so that we can begin planning. And I have a feeling that's going to fill up within nanoseconds because not only is this of fascination, it's what's in the zeitgeist as historically imperative for humanity in this time. We need to learn what you're teaching, and we need to empower ourselves to be more than what we think we are so that we can take on the challenges that are pressing upon us with an elegance that brings in these other intelligences and greater capacities to solve our problems. So I really want to commend you for finding your way to your vocation as you have. It's a very inspiring story. I'm totally impressed.
Thank you, Jim.
So that'll do it for us for today, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and Alex will join the after chat for a little bit. You'll see the link to the after chat in the chat box. You received the link in your Zoom reminder for today, and then we'll see you next week for a conversation about another aspect of the State of the World Forum coming up. Go to the State of the World Forum, stateoftheworld.forum, register to attend. This is going to be an experience of a lifetime. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.